Hey, welcome back to the channel. It's awesome that you're tuning in. In today's video, we are going to take a close look at the Anbernic RG35XXH. That's a mouthful. So in the previous video, or some time ago at least, we made a video about the normal version. I'm calling this thing the RG35XX Plus, the Game Boy Edition. But if you don't like the Game Boy Edition, this landscape can be maybe let's say, a different solution for you. But what are we getting? That's of course the question. But what are we getting with this new landscape edition? So specification wise, it's the same like, let's say, the Game Boy clone or the normal version. But this does have like some very cool, let's say, features. So first of all, Anbernic has a very nice consistency of different like high quality handhelds. But one of the things I already noticed, like the D-pad, where it responds nicely, I do notice, and when it comes to this particular D-pad, that it has like a very, let's say, nice resistance. But personally, I'm more like a wiggle D-pad fan. And the reason why, because it's easier to navigate, but also when it comes to let's play shmups, or if you just want like to shoot 'em up shmups, and if you want to play some fighting games. So now of course we have the two joysticks over here, the Nintendo Switch clones with the click, the ABXY, but also the ABXY have a very nice resistance to them. Over here, two buttons, that's most of the time to select in the start, then having the F button for going back to the main menu. Top having two Type-Cs and an HDMI out and a headphone jack. At the right we're getting the on and off switch. The display on this thing looks absolutely beautiful. The reset if anything goes wrong. At the bottom we're finding two speakers having stereo sound, and these things sound quite nice. Having two SD cards options. So with my version there only comes with one SD card, but you also have the option to add a second one for more storage and a physical volume control. At the back we're finding two, let's see, these rubber pads on it. That's something Anbernic does a lot. And of course the battery itself, it's quite a huge one. The shoulder buttons. So with this newer generation we're finding, let's say, a different height between them. It makes it more comfortable and way easier to press. Where I'm still not a big fan of, let's say, overall, let's say, shoulder buttons at all. So the menu, it's quite basic, nothing very fancy. But it just, if you don't want to tinker with it, that can be a very interesting device to buy. Inside the package we're not going to find a lot. Beside a screen protector, some wipes, then having a very extended manual that you can fold open with all explanation about how everything works. But you can just see over here with the emulator shortcuts. So for fast forwarding, you can make a quick load, quick save, and you're going to be combining that with the F. And the F button, I mean the one over here. So that is the one thing you need to learn, but I think if you're going to be playing a lot with this only single device, you're going to be getting the hang of it very quickly. The stock firmware on this device is absolutely great in many different ways. So to begin with, if you don't want to tinker, everything is just, let's say, completely like set to a certain, let's say, level. You can just plug and play this game system. So you can just see there's a lot of different systems you can play, a lot of handhelds, all the way up to PlayStation 1. And this is absolutely great. Even vertical games have been implemented in this device. PlayStation Portable is, let's say, possible to play, but you will see that in overall, let's say, benchmarking, you will have some minor problems. PlayStation Portable even can find the Dreamcast under the RA game, or in other words, is the RetroArch game folder. And that is basically the two different ways you can just get into the emulators and play, let's say, the device you really want to emulate. But overall there is so much you can play, it's absolutely nuts. 5 freaking pages full. For example, having a lot of ports that we have seen in many different devices, like Quake is in here, Quake Rogue, and all kinds of cool things like Wolfenstein 3D. Then we're having the favorite list, and in that the history. Pressing the F button will give you into the menu. Having the lock screen, backlight brightness can be set to 5, and I can tell you, holy crap, that is really bright. So we're going to leave it at 2 for recording purposes, and the network settings. In the network settings, here we have the Bluetooth, Wi-Fi setting, and the Moonlight streaming. Okay, so this is actually what we can do when it comes to the device, and that is what I love about this thing. It's just the way how it actually looks, but also when it, if you're looking at the menu, it's so easy. And yeah, again, if you just want to have something that looks clean and simple, this is just one of the ways to play. Okay, so let's start off with some fighting games and the D-pad. So I already mentioned before that the D-pad response is different than, let's say, in Powkiddy I've tested before. It's absolutely such an, let's say, overall different experience with some of the devices. You can see the inputs are just perfect. no problem whatsoever. But I really needed to get used to the D-pad, simply because you need to press it quite hard due to the resistance of the membranes. But when getting the hang of it, everything works just fine. The same goes for the analog stick. For the overall configuration of the shoulder buttons, if you're just going to be needing the side ones, it's not going to be a problem, but do have an overall pleasant experience with this. So, and also the emulation of the, let's say, later systems work great. Tekken and Killer Instinct won't work on this, by the way. Pressing the F button in the game, you will give you the quick, let's say, different menu. And with this, you're having a quick load, quick save, restart, and video display effect can even be changed out. It's been set to HD. We can set it to the scan line. So when you're going to be looking into this, you can see having a scan line. But let's do, let's say, a fun, let's say, side-by-side comparison. Let's choose one single game. Okay, well, that's kind of interesting when you're looking at, let's say, the same menu with PlayStation. We have disc control, video display effect can be changed out. I already mentioned we're going to be messing around with that. The backlight brightness can be adjusted in here. We're having different kind of BIOSes. You can add, let's say, BIOSes if you want to, and the vibration can be disabled, enabled. So let's see what happens in here. And yeah, I think so far do have the idea that we do have a small delay in the audio. So let's get into the gameplay and let's see how that actually works out. Yeah, we have an audio delay. And that's a little bit of a downside to this. Nothing to do about that. Okay, the first one is going to be the HD filter, and from that point we're going to be looking into scanline and all the other ones that are can be implemented in the game system. So far I understand it works with every single emulator. So this is actually the scanline filter number 1. Scanline filter number 2. No filter at all, so they call this fast. I completely understand why. But for PlayStation 1 it doesn't like influence anything going on over there. Next up it's called dot matrix. And back to the HD version. I think the HD version can be beneficial when you're going to be playing this on a bigger screen and going to hook it up through an HDMI. About HDMI. Let's plug it in, let's see what happens. So when you're looking into, let's say, the HDMI functionality, with some of the handhelds you need to reboot it or you need to get out of the game. But with this is just a plug-and-play situation. And that is kind of cool. So I did notice that it could take a little bit of a time if you're going to be switching between the handheld and the monitor itself. Maybe it can be different when you're actually going to be in the main menu. But you can see it takes some time, but it will eventually boot up and you can just play this thing on the television. The display quality or the overall quality, it's kind of weird because we have these weird lines going on. So let's get into, let's say, the scanline filter. Yeah, we do have the scan lines are more visible now. But I can tell you that it's not going to be any better. For me, the best is going to be fast with no HD filter when it comes to the HDMI. This looks absolutely great. And if you have a television, you can mess around with the aspect ratio if you want to. Just going to be leaving the video display effect on fast, by the way. But let's exit and let's go with the show and let's test out some other games. But let's move into some Game Boy Advance. There is so much that we can play, and I can tell you if you're going to be playing these games, it runs absolutely great when it comes to, let's say, the 8-bit, 16-bit stuff, handheld, you name it. There is so much that we can play with this. Absolutely great. Press start doesn't do anything, by the way, if you're wondering. A lot of devices do have that. Then you can mess around with it. Okay, let's go exit and let's go back to a different emulator. Yeah, you know, the 8-bit, 6-bit stuff, that runs all fine on this. It's absolutely a great overall experience. But when it comes to PlayStation 1, here we're going to have absolutely overall great performance. Yeah, absolutely fun to play these old school games, and they also added the background music, so that is absolutely cool. And you really need to get used to the buttons, because if you want to do drifting, it's going to be slightly difficult to do. Running on native resolution, this is really smooth. Ah, there we go. Ah, messed it up myself. And indeed, the rumble function has also been enabled, because now I'm basically bashing into the wall and can feel the handheld like vibrating. That's absolutely cool, man. That's really cool. With PlayStation Portable, we do have bezels of the resolution of PlayStation Portable being different of the screen we're actually using. So they adjusted it like that. Not a big of a deal. You can see already like into the intro that we're having some minor hiccups. And that's not going to be any different when you're going to be playing throughout the game. So if you're going to be playing some God of War, I know for sure that's going to be unplayable with a lot of many of these PlayStation Portable games that are not great at all. And way too, let's say, difficult to emulate on chips like these. But some of the games are playable, including the PlayStation Portable Minis. So when pressing the F button, what is interesting that we do have the option to mess around with the settings. But what is weird that they're putting like this rendering resolution 2 times. That makes no sense. And also, it makes it way more difficult. So, okay, they have 2 times resolution, but they have frame skip set to 2. Okay, yeah, so you can also tinker with that. And now we're getting so much overall better performance. So even this device isn't really made for tinkering. With PlayStation Portable, we can still tinker. But of course, let's try some Sega Dreamcast, one of my favorite devices. But the thing is, you do some minor glitching in the menu, but nothing really let's say, very bad to see that they completely destroys the overall experience of the game. Vibration function also enabled, you can just feel the thing going crazy with vibration. And the audio of this thing is amazing. The 2 speakers, I'm so glad they made the decision to put it in there. Alright, so let's see. I'm not the biggest fan of the D-pad. When it is playable, like direction, everything seems to be working fine. This is one of those games that I personally prefer to get a joystick. But audio, everything, visual part, it's working great. It's absolutely amazing. The music, the audio, the display, I like it a lot. But if you're going to be booting up through the RetroArch, yep, you're going to be having a different experience. We're having like sidebars now, so that's absolutely great that we don't have like some widescreen shenanigans going on. Another thing also, if you're going to be pressing, you can see that RetroArch is opening up, and here we can mess around with some settings if you want to. Man, I'm just listening to the soundtrack, just enjoying myself the soundtrack and the way how the 2 speakers sound, because this is great. I'm getting into the pinball vibe. But if you want to do some maintenance in your handheld, for example replacing the battery, that can be fairly easy done. Simply because removing the imbus. They're using imbus, by the way. It's kind of interesting because I think that's the first brand that ever used imbus in devices, or at least like the handheld devices. Most of them are using the Phillips screw in there, or Parker's. So we're just removing the 4 over here. And let's see if we're going to be needing a pry tool. Yep, we're going to be needing... No, we're not going to be needing a pry tool. Okay, so let's always be very gentle. So in here we're finding a 3300 milliamp battery. Okay. So you can just unplug them over there if you want to. We're just not going to be doing it. They are using in this device the Allwinner H700. Yeah, that's clearly printed on there. Having the 2 speakers configuration over there. The ribbon cable, so the display can also be replaced if you want to. So yeah, and here having the rumble motor. That's quite effective, even for this very single tiny one. Yeah, the micro switches underneath over here. They have a very nice click to it. Yeah, but that's actually what it is. There isn't a lot of parts in the inside. But this handheld is one of the many in a handheld lineup. But nevertheless, what you can do with the RG35XXH is absolutely great. You can play a lot of cool systems like Dreamcast, PlayStation 1. Of course, we do have like some limitations here and there, but that's the thing we're all getting with these, let's say, low power devices, where they're getting absolutely more powerful. Thank you all for watching. Consider subscribing, hit the little bell, and it will be great to see you in the next video.